debunked for 3 years straight, yet the internet has dubbed me the fishing god. That's because while others use bait, I seem to use my own life force to fish. My catches aren't fish but human remains, suitcases, bombs, or even nuclear submarines, and with a single cast, I once snagged a shady business owner's illegal fish shocker, landing him a spot with 3 hots and a cot. In short, I haven't caught a single fish, but I've managed to fill up the county jail. The cops are at their wits' end, pleading, "Ethan, buddy, for the love of God, can we please stop fishing?" Right now, by the banks of the Clearwater River on the outskirts of town, the afternoon sun is as vicious as a wicked stepmother, baking me until I'm drenched in sweat, yet the bobber on the water's surface remains perfectly still. Just as I was about to get heatstroke, the bobber shot under, sending out a ripple. My heart leaped with joy as I gripped the rod with both hands and yanked upwards with all my might. But to my surprise, the rod didn't budge, and an immense, strange force traveled up the line, nearly pulling me into the river. Holy crap, a monster, definitely a monster. A few other anglers who had been dozing off nearby heard the commotion and quickly gathered around. "Nice one, kid. Look at the bend in that rod. Must be at least 70 or 80 pounds. Hold steady, hold steady. Don't let it snag. Let out some line, let out some line." Hearing the praise from the surrounding anglers, I felt a surge of energy, and the behemoth under the water began to slowly surface. I wondered if it was a 100-pound grass carp or a trophy-sized ASP. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, a dark shadow emerged. However, it wasn't the streamlined body of a fish, but a bulging, green-woven polypropylene sack. Perhaps from being submerged for so long, it was covered in weeds and mud, looking like a big, hairy ball. The people around me shook their heads and sighed in disappointment. What a shame, what a shame. How did he end up catching a bag of trash? My mood in clouds as I struggled to drag the sack ashore. Instantly, an incredible stench filled the air, tinged with a clingly, nauseating odor. An angler next to me pulled in and immediately started to. I pinched my nose and crouched down to remove the hook. The moment I did, my pupils dilated in shock. Through a tear in the sack made by the hook, a toe tinted with red nail polish was clearly visible. In that instant, my mind went blank with a buzz, and I collapsed to the ground, unable to move. An old-timer nearby saw this and eagerly came closer. "Well now, did you find some treasure? Let me have a look." But the second, his words caught in his throat, and a blood-curdling scream tore through the riverside quiet. Murder! 20 minutes later, the red and blue lights of police cars illuminated the wild river. I was flanked by 2 officers. Although I was in cuffs, the way they positioned me made me look no different from a suspect. The senior officer's name was Captain Miller, the head of the city's criminal investigation department. He had eyes like a hawk, and a single glance from him could make a person shiver. "Officer, I swear I was trying to catch a fish for some soup. How was I supposed to know I'd reel in this thing?" Captain Miller glanced at my empty keep net, pointed the sack on the ground, and said, "Look like fish soup is off the menu for today. Come on down to the station with me for a chat." In the interrogation room, I held a disposable paper cup, my mind a complete blank. Captain Miller sat across from me, his expression grim as he flipped through a file. According to the medical examiner's report, the contents of the sack are indeed human remains. The soft fish is completely decomposed, leaving only phalange and some adipose tissue. The estimated time of death is at 2 years ago, which means it has nothing to do with this young man here. Captain Miller closed the file, his tone softening slightly. "All right, you can relax. We've checked your story, and it seems you're just a fisherman with some seriously bad luck. You're free to go. By the way, still want that fish soup?" My face turned pale, and I waved my hands frantically. "No more fishing. I'm done with fishing for life." After completing all the paperwork, I walked out of the station with my fishing gear in hand, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the cloying, sweet stench still lingered in my nostrils. I looked at the gear in my hands, ready to pack it away for good. But just as I lifted the lid of the can, a ding suddenly sounded in my mind. "Host fish has been detected at a critical low. Binding fishing heat map system. Successful catches will earn points. Each point can be exchanged for $10. New user bonus, 500 points. My hand froze. 1 point equals $10. Then 500 points will be $5,000. The fear in my mind instantly vanished, replaced by an almost manic excitement. The old saying, "fishing can make you rich," was true after all. I checked the time. There were still 3 hours until dark. I silently commanded, "Open system." Instantly, a translucent blue map appeared before my eyes, showing the waterways of Riverside City. About 500 yards downstream from the crime scene, an area was flashing with a red light. I gritted my teeth, grabbed a shared bike, and headed straight for the Clearwater River. Bad luck or not, for $5,000, I'd wrestle a ghost back into its grave if I had to. Soon, I was back at the Clearwater River. My old fishing spot was now cordoned off with long lines of police tape, and a few forensics officers were still there, collecting evidence from the water. Following the location indicated by the system's heat map, I went downstream, found a flat spot, and started preparing my bait, adjusting my float and casting my line. Sure enough, less than 10 minutes after my line hit the water, the bobber twitched. It dipped twice, then slowly began to sink, a classic sign of a bite. I was ecstatic. This kind of bobber action almost certainly meant a big wild crappie. I held my breath, waited for the perfect moment, and then jerked the rod up hard. However, my hands were met with a dead weight. The familiar, heart-stopping heaviness instantly froze the smile on my face. Cautiously, I reeled in the line, slowly pulling the object closer. It was a strangely shaped thing, not wrapped in a sack this time, just a few tattered pieces of cloth clinging to a stark white bone with a clear joint structure. It looked like a femur, but the break was clearly not from natural causes. The last bit of hope in my heart died, and a chill shot up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Had I stumbled upon a damn dumping ground for human remains? I stiffly pulled out my phone. Captain Miller, are you still on duty? Sorry to bother you, but you might need to come back out here. I've caught another fish. When Captain Miller arrived on the scene again, his eyes were a mixture of 70% shock and 30% suspicion. Buddy, be honest with me. Were you a tomb raider in a past life? Or do you have some kind of supernatural ability to find things? Captain Miller, would you believe me if I said I was just trying to catch a fish to spice up my dinner? Captain Miller rolled his eyes, clearly unconvinced. He stared intently at the bone before him. The DNA from the finger bones we found earlier was a perfect match for a sensational cold case from 2 years ago. This leg bone here most likely belongs to the same person. I was the lead investigator on that case. We had a suspect, but we could never find the victim's body, so the case stalled. Who would have thought that the crucial evidence would be fished out of the river by you, of all people? You've done a great service, buddy. Once we crack this case, you'll be the first person we nominate for the Good Samaritan Award. 3 days later, I stood on a stage in the Riverside City Police Department's conference hall, the guest of honor. I had a large red rosette pinned to my chest and held a plaque personally prepared by Captain Miller, which read, "A concerned citizen, the scourge of crime." Beside me, Captain Miller spoke passionately into a microphone. In light of Ethan's outstanding contribution to this major case, the department has decided to award him the Concerned Citizen title and a reward of $5,000. Hearing the words $5,000, my previously dull eyes lit up instantly. Well now, this trip wasn't a total waste after all. After the ceremony, I had just walked out the main entrance when Captain Miller caught up to me. Hey, hold on. The case is solved, and the deceased can finally rest in peace. So you've done a great deed. Also, if you ever catch anything interesting again, don't bother with 911, just call my personal number directly. Captain Miller, can't you wish me some better luck? I just want to be a quiet fisherman. All right, I wish you a speedy fortune then. After saying goodbye to Captain Miller, I went straight home and glanced at my fishing bag in the corner. A thought struck me. A craftsman must first sharpen his tools. I figured the reason I kept catching those things was because my rod wasn't good enough to ward off the bad juju. So, I spent a small fortune on a limited edition Daiwa rod, top-of-the-line imported fishing line, a master-grade bobber, and even a special peachwood handle said to ward off evil spirits. With this set of divine equipment, I refused to believe I couldn't catch a single fish. The next day, I woke up to find my new fishing gear delivered to my doorstep. I opened the fishing heat map system, and the map of Riverside City's waters had refreshed. The red on the Clearwater River was gone, but now, about 20 miles away at a place called Devil's Kettle, a deep red was lurking silently at the bottom. It was so far away, and I'd be all alone. What if something happened? I thought for a moment, then pulled an old phone from a drawer and downloaded a live streaming app. Company is company, and internet strangers are often more reliable than friends. At 3 p.m., I took a cab to the mountainous area near Devil's Kettle. The driver glanced at the destination on his GPS, then at my gear, and hesitated before speaking. Son, you're going to Devil's Kettle? I hear that place isn't exactly clean. People mysteriously fall in there every year, and they say you can hear crying at night. You're alone. Crying at night. You're alone, so be quick about it. With that, the driver floored the gas and sped off as if fleeing for his life. What a jinx, saying something like that. Was he trying to scare me on purpose? I patted the $1,000 Daiwa rod on my back to steel my nerves. I've reeled in human remains before. What's a ghost to be afraid of? I then hauled my gear down a small path for about 10 minutes and finally reached the location marked by the red dot on the system. It was a typical moraine-dammed lake, the water a heart-stoppingly dark green, which looked quite terrifying. I swallowed hard, found a relatively flat pile of rocks, and set down my bags to fiddle with my streaming equipment. Being a new account, my stream was empty. I wasn't in a hurry, so I skillfully mixed my bait, adjusted my bobber, and used a special spoon to toss out handfuls of corn kernels for chum. Then, I cast my line with a powerful throw, the bait landing precisely above the glowing red dot. As time ticked by, the sun began to set, and the light in the valley dimmed. The number of viewers in my stream, however, had actually grown to over 50 people. To be honest, I wanted to leave too. I kept feeling a chill down my spine as I sat there. But the system's red dot was right here, and it was moving slightly, which meant it had to be something alive. Don't worry, folks. The big ones always bite at night. The words had barely left my mouth when the bobber on the water surface gave a violent shudder. My spirits lifted. Folks, did you see that? I've got a bite. With that, my body reacted instinctively, yanking the rod to set the hook. There was a loud thwack as the line sliced through the water, the sound so sharp it had a metallic, vibrating quality to it. The Daiwa rod in my hands instantly bent into a full moon, and an indescribable force shot up from the tip, causing me to stumble forward, nearly pitching me headfirst into the lake. The live stream chat exploded, but I had no time to look at the comments. I gripped the rod tightly with both hands, bracing the butt against my stomach, my face turning beet red. With a roar, I used my core strength to lean back. What the hell was this thing? It was too heavy. It didn't feel like a fish struggling at all, more like an ox was pulling from under the water. Come on, up you go. The water's surface began to churn as a mass of bubbles rose up. The viewer count in my stream skyrocketed due to the intense struggle. That's definitely not a fish. Even if it's a 100-pound turtle, you'd have to reel in Poseidon first, right? If he pulls that thing up, I'll eat my own shoe on a live stream. I gritted my teeth, veins popping on my forehead. Thankfully, the red dot on the system map was slowly moving closer to the shore. Finally, after a standoff of nearly 10 minutes, the surface of the water broke. It wasn't a fish's head, nor the back of some sea monster, but a gray, metallic wing. That's right, a wing. Following that, a streamlined, gray object about 3 feet long emerged from the water. It looked like a miniature fighter jet, but it had no cockpit and a propeller at the tail. I frowned, completely dumbfounded. The viewers in the stream were just as confused. What is that? A drone? Then, under the watchful eyes of hundreds of viewers, I used every ounce of my strength to drag the heavy object onto the rocky shore and collapsed, panting heavily. Only then did I get a chance to examine the big thing up close. The paint on this thing was intact, and though it was tangled with some weeds, it clearly hadn't been in the water for long. The impact marks on the wing suggested it had crashed before falling into the lake. A black case was mounted on its belly, sealed with a sticker, but the writing was too blurry to read. The chat was flooded with comments urging me to open the case. I swallowed, hesitated for a long moment, and finally managed a smile that looked worse than a grimace. Folks, I think with this thing, better trust the boy in blue. This is my first day streaming, and I'd rather not end it in a jail cell. With that, I pulled out my phone and dialed Captain Miller's number. At the city's criminal investigation department, Captain Miller had just finished his work and was about to lie down for a quick nap, but as soon as he lay down, his phone rang. Seeing the caller ID was Ethan, the guy who fishes up bodies, he shot up from his cot. After hearing my description, he immediately started getting dressed. Don't touch that case, turn off the stream, stay right where you are, and wait for me. I'm bringing a team over right now. 40 minutes later, the piercing wail of sirens shattered the valley's tranquility. After parking on the roadside, Captain Miller and several young officers ran in. When they saw the gray drone with its 3-foot wingspan lying on the rocky shore, they all gasped. Captain Miller circled the drone, his expression grave. This is a modified DJI Agras T-Series industrial frame. They've upgraded the battery and motors for heavy load, long-distance flights. Seal the area and wait for the tech unit. The officer next to him knew Captain Miller was a drone enthusiast and had identified the model at a glance. The tech unit officers immediately moved in, carefully inspecting the black case. After confirming there were no explosives, they broke the seal and opened the lid. I craned my neck to see and my eyes widened. Officer Evans from the tech unit shook his head, crouched down, and picked one up to examine it. More expensive than gold. These are computer chips, high-end ones that are currently restricted. This whole case is worth at least $100,000. It has to be smuggling. Captain Miller's brow furrowed. They had indeed received intelligence recently about a smuggling ring using drones to fly-line goods across the border in the mountains. He never imagined one would crash into Devil's Kettle and get fished out by someone. At this thought, Captain Miller turned to look at me, his gaze now 30% shock and 70% suspicion. Kid, do you have an informant on the inside? How is it that wherever there's a major case, you're there fishing? Captain, I swear to God, I was really just trying to catch a fish. Who knew this piece of junk was in the water? Honestly, I would have preferred a 100-pound